happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, June the 25th. It is the 177th day of the year. There are 189 days left in the year 2024, and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Tom. Well, the one and only presidential debate is this week. I think it's Thursday. While this debate is critical and America and the world will be watching, it seems the news media focuses on age and which of the two men will misspeak. A misspoken word or phrase is, to me, to be expected by either. It is the biggest moment in their lives. How would I do if the whole world was watching and I had to have ready facts at my command against a foe that I have some disdain for? For the world's sake, let's hope we can see through the hype, the untruths, and focus on what matters to the country and to the world. Our G-List guest today is John Shackelford, Executive Director of the Eagle Ranch, a nonprofit organization that takes a whole family approach to restoring and renewing relationships for children and families. John Shackelford is responsible for leading the staff and accomplishing the ranch's mission to restore and renew children and families in relational crisis. So we look forward to having that discussion. Our show today, of course, is sponsored by the Best Girl Consulting Firm. So let's hear it from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl customizes the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to our roundtable regulars and talk to Barbara Wallace-Edwards and Michael Walker. Good morning, Barbara Wallace-Edwards. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Tom. I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you this morning?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So I'm
Good.
going to go into a subject that's probably not very pleasant for you, but we need to talk about it anyway. So did you ever get your Facebook page back?
I did not, Tom. And you're right. It's not a fun topic for me to discuss. I'm still not sure what the issue is. Seems like the people at Facebook don't know what the issue is. I did some research. It looks like people have been having that same type of problem, which is requiring users to set up a two-factor authentication code for Facebook access. As people have had the problem as far back as a year. And from what I've seen, they just can't resolve it. So you end up having to just forget about your old Facebook page, set up a new one, request all these friends and groups that you were in before. And so I'm going through that process right now, but I don't think I'll get my original page back. I can see it, but I just can't sign into it. So I can't get any of my messages. If anyone has sent me messages or tried to reach me or tag me on anything, please know that it's not me that's responding. I just can't see it.
Let me ask you this. Have you been able to speak to a human being?
No, sir. There's nobody at Facebook that you can talk to. They don't have a customer service line. There's no chat line, nothing. There's no way to communicate directly with them. They have a help field on Facebook. You can actually go in and click that link, but it actually has pre-worded questions in there that you can't add to it. You can't take away from it. You have to ask those questions and they'll answer that. And that's it. So you don't even have a chance to just write your dialogue to say, this is the problem I'm having. This is how I got to it. You can't attach screenshots or anything. So this is the new age I think we've come to with customer service. A lot of companies are moving away from it. As I understand it, about a year ago, Facebook had a chat line where you could at least go in and chat with someone online. And after they couldn't resolve several of the problems with the two-factor authentication, I heard they just deleted the chat line altogether. So they don't want you to communicate with them.
Well, a lot of the companies don't today.
Right.
They're very difficult to get to talk to.
Yeah, I heard that Facebook Meta I think, let like over 1,000 people go not long ago. You almost have to wonder if someone that left has the answer to these questions and nobody else knows how to resolve it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get Michael on, and we'll see if he can help resolve it.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, TG. Good morning, Barbara.
He's already laughing, so
he
I don't think he's the answer.
Michael, I'm hoping you are the answer.
Hey, guys, I'm telling you, it's hilarious to me. It's so funny how technology can be so convenient, but at the same time, it can totally disrupt your life.
Absolutely.
And so I understand what you're saying, Barbara, but as I was telling you guys earlier, I'm in the Windy City, Chicago, the city of broad shoulders. But my trip here was anything less than normal. You know, I have, talking about identification and authentication and all of that type of stuff. Well, I'm TSA pre-check, and I have Clear, where you stick your eyes in this machine and they look at your iris and all that and get you through. Right. So I head to the airport. And first of all, only way to the airport, leaving on I guess it was Thursday, try to give myself plenty of time, but there were 2 backup incidents on the highway. But I get to the airport, I got about an hour and 30 minutes to go. So I'm like, okay, I'm cool. I go through the TSA line, go through Clear. But at the very beginning, when I did curbside check-in, I had him print my ticket. When he printed my ticket, TSA number didn't come up. I said, wait a minute, man, I'm TSA pre-check. I put it in. Well, they didn't put it in. He said, you got your number? I said, sure, I have it. I gave him my number. He printed a ticket there for me and put TSA on it. But when I get up there, they won't accept it because they said it's got to match what's in the system. And I said, well, the system had it wrong. They didn't list my TSA pre-check number. I said, but I have Clear, so you know I'm who I am. Right. My name is on both tickets. You know I'm going to Chicago. Why can't I go through? No, it got to be exactly what's in the system. The system hadn't updated yet. They took me out of the line. I'm right there to go through screen. You can't go that way. You got to go back around the general boarding. I said, you got to be kidding me.
Are you kidding me?
So I'm serious. I said, so you kicking me out of line, telling me I got to go back halfway across the terminal and go into general boarding, which is long as hell. That's why I'm in TSA pre-check.
Right. Did you make the flight on time?
You know what? They didn't even care whether I was going to miss my flight or not. Right. Didn't even offer to give me some assistance to get me to the head of the line. So I started heading back. And when I get close to general boarding, I see a lady that was TSA. And I said, well, let me try this female because I know a male's not going to help me. Right. So I went over and I spoke to her, explained it. She said, man, you pay a lot of the money to be in Clear and TSA pre-check. This system is just screwed up. Come on, I'll take you. So she took me through to the head of the line and explained to him what was going on. They gave me one of these little cards to hold up, like when you're in jail or something like that. You hold the thing up that said TSA pre-check. And I got through. And when I got to my gate, they were boarding.
Wow.
Well, I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised between the technology. Well, is it the technology or is it the people who are supposedly operating the technology?
Right. It's not the technology's fault.
It's
the
not
people
funny,
but it's programming
ridiculous, really.
It
is.
It's
kind of ridiculous, you know?
It really is.
Why can't they think outside of the box? Like I said,
they're not getting paid to do that. They're just getting paid to do
You're asking for too much, Michael.
It's we all, the three of us, we all came through in an era when you worked for a big company. Michael, you and I worked for AT&T. Barbara, you worked for
Blue Cross. Yeah, right.
You worked for a company that believed in nurturing you and training you and making sure that you could represent that company well. And that's just not the case anymore.
And customer service was top priority. It was always customer first. Always customer first.
Customer service is always priority.
Yeah.
And at Bell South, AT&T, they planned out your, what do I want to call it, Michael? Your career, so to speak.
Sure.
They pretty much, and so you had, you knew where you were trying to go and what you were trying to do, and so on and so
Right.
forth. And if you had an issue, you could call somebody and talk to them.
Right.
And hopefully they could resolve that issue for you. But it's not like that anymore.
No. And I was really angry, but then I said, I got to consider the source, consider who I'm dealing with, and let me just dial it back. And I was fortunate because it could have been worse. Because suppose I missed my flight, my luggage was already on the plane.
Right.
Okay. And if I had to get another flight later, then it would have just been a whole nother issue of trying to identify my bags when I get to Chicago, no telling where they would have been by then. So I consider myself lucky, even though I was very frustrated.
And I had the same thing. I went once and I was trying to, I don't know where I was coming from, but I was in Atlanta. And so my flight wasn't scheduled to leave till like 9:30. And it's like 8:00 and there's another plane leaving. So I want to see if I can get on the 8:00 plane so I can get back earlier. And of course the answer was no, and so on and so forth. And so I just left. I was, I had an attitude about it. And I walked around and then came back and there was a different woman on the booth.
Right.
And I went up and asked her and she said, sure, that's no problem.
Right.
And put me on the flight. It just, I don't know. So it just depends on who you get, I guess.
I think that has a lot to do with this.
What kind of day they're having.
Yes.
Which determines what kind of day you're going to have.
Right.
True.
So let me ask you. Go ahead.
I just said so true. That's all.
Let me ask you guys this while we're here. So what do you think about the debate? Is it Thursday night?
It is Thursday night.
What's you guys' feelings about the debate?
I'm getting my popcorn ready, and I don't even eat popcorn, but I'm ready for it because I know it's going to be a show. It's going to be a show. I'm truly excited, though, that they are going to be able to turn the mic off because there's one person that's participating in the debate. I'm not sure they're going to be able to control their mouth, and when it's not their turn to talk, they're going to be trying to talk, and when it's their turn to stop talking, they're going to try to keep talking. So that's going to be nice to see. And he's already saying that the narrators are going they're already unfair. They're going to treat him unfair. So he's already trying to put a narrative out there that, if he doesn't do well, it's not his fault, it's someone else's fault.
Right. He preps it. So.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't, I'm almost in a situation where I don't even know if I really want to watch it. And and primarily because you're not going to really get quality debate on the issues, number one. And the fact that one person is going to, for lack of a better term, probably act a fool, and it's just disheartening that this is where we are. Okay.
That's true.
It's sad. Yes.
Yes. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican. We're talking about the future of our country.
That's right.
Okay. And the person that's taking office should dignify and respect to office. And I'm not saying that Biden hasn't done that, but it's hard to stay. Well, my grandmother used to say, if you lay down with dogs, you'll get up with fleas. So I look at that situation, no matter how much you want to stay above the fray, if you're with somebody that's going to stay in the fray and you got to interact with them, you're going to get some fleas.
In the mud.
Yes.
Go wallow in the mud. You probably got to get some mud on you as well.
Exactly.
They showed a clip, I guess, for the last debate they had.
Yeah.
And it was Biden's turn to talk, and Trump was just talking over him.
Yes.
Said, Man,
we just shut up. Yes. That was hilarious. But again, that this time the narrators will have an opportunity to just shut his mic off, and so even if he's talking, no one will be able to hear him.
But will they? That's the thing.
I will hope that at least Jake Tapper will. He seems to be, he's not afraid. He's the type of person that, I think he'll try to take control of the situation. So I think they will.
But let me tell you this. How do you feel good and I'm not advocating for anybody to vote for one person or the other,
Mm-hmm.
but your choice is somebody that has 30-something felonies. Now you'll see the Trump supporters will say, well, they were trumped up charges. They'll say that. No pun intended, using the word Trump.
Right.
But they're going to say, well, those are not real charges. Well, okay, how many trumped up charges have we had for innocent black men? But they were real charges then. But now these are not real charges. Make up your freaking mind, okay?
How many trumped up charges does the other guy have? He doesn't have any.
None.
Why do you have them all?
Because they're not trumped up. They're real.
Interesting, though. And I've been debating whether or not I really wanted to watch it, because I didn't want to get myself upset because they don't turn him off when he needs to be turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's as these trials have unfolded and everything is unfolded, there is a reluctance to
cross him.
Treat him the way everybody else has been treated.
Right.
Yes.
The way black men are locked up
Right.
over whatever, over the slightest thing in some cases.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting. But I agree with you. And then if I don't watch it, then I hate to watch the
replay, the snippets.
Yeah,
the clips.
Because it's just CNN's got one opinion, Fox has got another opinion.
That's why I want to watch it, Tom, so I can see the whole thing. I won't be getting snippets here, snippets there, and getting somebody else's opinion about it. I want to sit down and watch the entire 90 minutes so I can see the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to really change any voters' minds about anything.
I doubt it. Yeah, well, it's interesting. The other thing that's really interesting, and I'll get you guys on this, and we probably need to move on. Supposedly, all these young black teenagers, all these young black adults, not teenagers because they can't vote, are supporting Trump. I don't know. I don't see how that's possible to be.
I don't either. Where are they? I mean, I haven't seen any. They keep talking about them, but I haven't seen that. Where are they getting that information from?
I don't know.
Well, you can take the polling data and make it says whatever you want it to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't doubt that there may be some truth to it, but I don't think it's as much as people are making it out to be. And with Trump going around and holding pep rallies with rappers and people like that and trying to liken himself to that, the people that follow those type of people are probably maybe supporting, but I don't know of very many accomplished African-American business people or professionals that are into that. And to be quite honest with you, there are a lot of Republicans that are Caucasian that don't adhere to his standards. Okay.
Right.
They don't agree with that. So there are a lot of people here at my conferences. One person said, I don't have a home. As a conservative, I don't really have a home.
Right.
So but
it's like when Trump was in Atlanta and they had this, where he, I think, went to some fast food restaurant and he supposedly had all these black college students that were there with him. And when they actually went back and looked at it, he brought those people in with him. They were not from Atlanta. These were people that he paid to come. And so it was all staged.
That's what I'm talking about.
And
he
shows up in a church in Detroit, I think, and they talking about there were like 8,000 black people there supporting him. They scanned the crowd, and you could count maybe 20 black people. The others were all white, probably his supporters that were just coming to hear him. So everything is falsified with him. You don't ever know what's the truth and what's not, because they just throw out numbers and say things that are not true. And so those supposedly all these young blacks who are supporting Trump, I'm not sure they're real, Tom.
Yeah.
Who I don't know. This is probably a question none of us can answer, but who did he get for his vice president? I heard he had selected somebody. Did they announce who it was?
There's a short list I think it's whittled down to two. At least that's what I heard. One is J.D. Vance out of Ohio, which is that's an issue there, in my opinion. And the other guy is Doug Berman, the governor from South Dakota, I think it is. It's either South or North Dakota. He's a really successful businessman, pretty straight talker. I can understand him. I can see him, but I wonder if it would be a train wreck, because they found a clip where they interviewed him like maybe 4 years ago and asked him, would Trump be somebody that he could do business with? And he looked and paused and says, no, I don't think so. And so now he's on the short list to be VP. So I think that might be a conflict right there.
Well, we'll just have to suck it up and watch it and see what happens.
See what happens. That's right.
Yeah. Let me share this with you guys. Tom, you know how we always like The Godfather and stuff, and talk about how the gangsters were. And being here in Chicago, headquarters of none other than Alfonso Capone, it's really interesting. I had the opportunity to go to dinner the other night at Harry Carey's, and they have it called Frank Nitti, which was one of Al Capone's henchmen and what have you. So it was pretty interesting, and they did a little play about who killed Easy Eddie O'Hare, who was the lawyer for Al Capone. And that murder or assassination has never been solved. And his lawyer, Eddie O'Hare, was assassinated 1 week before Al Capone was released from Alcatraz. Okay. And he was ambushed downtown Chicago by two gunmen shooting shotguns and stuff, but they never found out who did it. But the interesting thing about this restaurant is they have Al Capone's vault there down at the bottom of it, the vault that he had to store all of his money and valuables in. And then there's a little tunnel where he could go in and out of there. And they had a speakeasy room. Like, we went into this room to get our food, and there was a shelf there with books, and you could go behind that, and there was a secret room back there. So it was really, really interesting to see these places where Al Capone visited and what went on. And, his, and Tom, you probably know this with Joyce being from Chicago, he's buried here in Chicago. I have a cousin that says his gravesite is about maybe 10, 15 minutes from his house. And he said that Capone is buried with his mother on one side, and on the other side are 4 of his bodyguards that are buried there.
Wow.
They're still watching out for it.
Yeah. In the afterlife.
Yes, sir.
I'll just say this quickly, and we need to move on. But you're talking about the Godfather. When we went down to Cuba, we went to the Hotel Nacional, or whatever it's called. And when you go downstairs, there's all these photos and memories of the gangsters. So they were trying to move into Cuba, So it was great. It was a wonderful experience to be able to do that. Every one of them's named up there. And if you watch, what's that movie, Key Largo, with when the gangsters came to Key Largo, whatever. I remember. All those stuff have snippets of truth in them.
Yes. Yes.
So
anyway, let's. Anybody got anything else?
I just have one quick thing, Tom. I want to say congratulations to the University of Tennessee. They won the Men's College World Series last night, beating Texas A&M. Yeah. So this is the first World Series men's championship that Tennessee has won. So congratulations to the Volunteers.
Okay, good deal. Okay, sounds good. Michael, you got anything else?
Well, I got one thing that was interesting.
Go ahead.
There's a lady named Valentine Gomez. She's running for Secretary of State for the state of Missouri. And she came out right before Juneteenth and made some very disparaging remarks, but she was doing it to get Trump endorsement. And basically what she said is that we're about to get Juneteenth shoved down our throats, and Black Americans ought to be grateful that they were born here. And if they don't like it, they can get the F out. And how can you ask for reparations when you weren't a slave yourself? And President Trump was the greatest president we ever had, and I look forward to having his endorsement. She's 25 years old and an immigrant from Colombia.
Wow. Confused. Can you say confused?
She's trying to get
Come on
an
now.
endorsement, man.
Say
Yeah.
what? What'd you say,
Trying to
TG?
get an endorsement.
She's trying to get his endorsement. But everyone he endorses doesn't win.
Very true. Very
That's true. Yeah.
And that doesn't seem to deter them, though.
No, that's true. You're right.
Yeah.
They're
Well, let's
sucking
hope she
up.
doesn't win.
I hope not.
Yeah, she
What
probably won't.
state was this, Michael?
Missouri.
And her name
And she's
was Gomez?
25. Huh?
Her name is Gomez?
Yes, Gomez. Valentine Gomez. And she's 25 years old. So what does she know about reparation? What does she know about slavery? Here's the other thing that was ridiculous. She said that this country was built by straight white men. And they built the roads and the highways and stuff that we enjoy today. And that they fought for America's independence from the British.
And
As
so
I stated before, confused.
right, you just walk off, you know?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And surely she can't believe that.
Barbara, your sister says she was in that restaurant 2 years ago and saw that vault. I guess
Oh, in Chicago. Yes.
I went on a tour of all the Chicago gangsters.
Yes. Okay.
Best
Yes.
tour ever. So
Yeah, they have a tour for the gangsters and stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say, Michael, maybe you can go on that tour. So
I'd love to do that.
yeah. Okay. Anything else from you guys? All right. Well, let's go on and get Sean's got a minute for us, and then we'll get to our G list guests. Sean.
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. It's our last week in June, with July coming in hot on its heels. And I know we talk about sports often here on Tuesdays with Tom. And did you know that in the June of 1972, Title IX of the Education Amendments was enacted into law? Title IX prohibits federally funded educational institutions from discriminating against students or employees based on sex. As a result of Title IX, any school that receives any federal money from the elementary to university level, in short, all schools, must provide fair and equal treatment of the sexes in all areas, including athletics. Before Title IX, few opportunities existed for female athletes. In 1906, the NCAA was created to format and enforce rules in men's football, but had become the ruling body of college athletics. But it offered no athletic scholarships for women, held no championships for women's teams, and it was actually designed to correct those imbalances. Many thanks to Title IX. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute.
All right. So let's go to our G list. Hollywood's got the A list. Here on Tuesdays with Tom, we have the G list. Our G list guest today is John Shackelford. John Shackelford currently serves as executive director of the Eagle Ranch. The Eagle Ranch is a ranch that is responsible to renew children and families in relational crisis. So let's get John on and we'll go from there. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for being with us. We appreciate you. I'm going to see if Barbara's got some questions for you, and then we'll come back around.
I do. Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm doing well, Barbara. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning. And I know that you are the second executive director for Eagles Ranch. Talk about the history, how the ranch got started, and who's the founder, and what was his mission and purpose?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to. So yes, Eddie Staub, another Auburn grad, actually started Eagle Ranch here in Flowery Branch, Georgia in 1985. Actually came, he was from Birmingham and gone to Auburn, but had ended up coming to the Atlanta area in 1982 to had just felt a really spiritual calling to come and provide a welcoming, safe, and healing environment for, at the time, boys who were having difficult times in their families. And but something happened, right before the ranch opened that really would impact the trajectory of how we do our work and have done it for 40 years. And it was a counselor by the name of Bruce Birch who met Eddie, heard about what he was doing, and had experience doing whole family counseling and reunification work. And he kind of challenged Eddie, invited him to think about, what if you use the ranch not just as sort of a respite for these boys to kind of get away from their families, but what if you use this opportunity to kind of bring the whole family to counseling and really focus on reunification? And so Eddie caught that vision. And so he and Bruce really started that work in 1985 and did it with our house parents that come and really help lead and care for those boys. And then that was to about 2000, 2001. And then we launched the girls side of the program as that need became more pronounced in this area. And then Eddie led us faithfully up until 2021. And that's when I came in as the second executive director. So July will be 3 years that I'll have been here at the ranch.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And talk about the age range of the children that are the residents there.
Yes. Yeah. So for our residential program, which is still our flagship kind of cornerstone program, really we serve the middle schools, really the sweet spot for the boys and girls who serve in that program. But now, as we've expanded service over the last 3 years, we've got outpatient counseling, a day school program, and even a short-term stabilization counseling program that allows us to serve children and families really of any age, really across the spectrum. And we've just seen that as, unfortunately, the need has increased. I mean, we went last year, we received 750 calls from families in crisis, which was a 60% increase from 2022. And so far this year in 2024, we're on track for around 800 phone calls. And so we just felt the need to be good stewards of what God has entrusted to us, of this property. It's 500 acres here in Flowery Branch, Georgia, that all of our services take place within, as well as just having more families have the courage to reach out. And so we've expanded and diversified those services to make it accessible to all those in need.
What like, this may not be the right word, but what qualifies a kid to come to the Eagle Ranch? Why does a family call you guys? What's going on with the child?
That's a great, so for our residential program, which is our most intense intervention, which you can imagine. I mean, you think about your own child. I think about my own. I've got 3 of my own kids, and to think about getting to the stage where I would need to look at my son and say, his name's Grant. Grant, you need to move out of our house for a season of time and live here at Eagle Ranch. If we're going to be doing counseling, and we're not abandoning you for that 18, 24 months, but that's a pretty intense moment to get to. And so typically families have gone through a lot of counseling, a lot of other interventions before they get to that stage. What we tried to do is, historically, up until 3 years ago, the families would have to find those preventative interventions before they got to that stage with us. And so what we thought is, why not create those first earlier steps here at the ranch for them to be able to do that earlier and to have kind of crossed all those bridges before they get to that stage. So some of the things, though, that lead a family to some of these more intense interventions are, a lot of the kids are experiencing some form of suicidal ideation, some self-harm. I can think of a young woman that just recently graduated our program, and her family did tremendously in program. And she had just become a danger to herself, had a really hard time regulating her emotions, at an outburst of frustration, anger, would literally go into her room and just bang her head against the wall for an hour or longer, and pull her hair out in lumps. And so We have some of these kids where some of them have some of those physical presenting issues. Some it's just they've shut down, and there's an element of they just feel the inability to connect with their child, and potentially the child refuses to go to school. That can be truancy, really significant truancy. And so it can be a wide array of issues, but we really reserve the residential program for those situations where it's severe enough that we really see that there is a need for that temporary separation so the family can envision and the child can envision what healing could potentially look like.
Michael?
Well, John, I'm sorry, your son is Grant.
Yes,
Thank you for being here with us. I was just thinking about when you made the simulation, if you told your son to move out, to go somewhere, and it just kind of stuck with me. Can you give us a case or an example of some intervention you did for someone that came in without naming names? Just kind of set the table and show us that process that you go about in getting it right connected.
Yes, no, I'd be happy to. Well, I'll actually, one that's very recent. We had a young woman here who, just a little bit of the background. So she was born into the foster care system. So her parents lost parental rights from the get-go. So she was born into foster care, lived in 2 different foster homes in her first 7.5 months of life, and was adopted at 7.5 months old by a family who also adopted her 2 biological siblings. So they brought in all 3 of these kids are all under age 3 at the time. And then the adoptive parents find out that, oh, wait, we're pregnant. Didn't think we could get pregnant. And so they gave birth to a child, ended up having 4 children under 4 years old, 3 of whom were adopted in a very difficult, as you can imagine, the parental rights were terminated. It was a very difficult situation. So ultimately, they, grow as a family, but they end up getting divorced in 2018. And so now you've got kind of a single mom with 4 children. I believe she got most of custody, but the young woman who ended up coming to the ranch just started experiencing really like some of the things I just described in terms of, inability to regulate emotions, was not a danger to others, had never lashed out at others, but was a real significant danger to herself. And the really another sad part of it was she had really lost connection with her adoptive father. He had really backed out of the picture, felt like, I don't have a place here in this family anymore. And so they would try to do a weekly call, and it was a real struggle to ever really come through on making that phone call and connecting. So the mother, she remarries, and but their daughter is continuing to struggle, so she ends up being accepted here at the ranch. So she comes to the ranch, and there's so many things I could say about the 2 years that they were here in program, but I think a couple of things I'll mention. We made the determination really early on, our team did, and we said, you know what, for this girl to experience full healing, we think that we need all 3 parents in the picture. So adoptive mom and her new husband, and we also want adoptive dad in the picture. And so we invited and challenged them to all step into counseling. And I'm pleased to say that they accepted that challenge. And so they leaned into the process. And our house parents who took the girl into their home, they were so bought into the process that there was one beautiful moment along the way where the adoptive dad, who, again, he's kind of feeling like the odd man out. I don't know what my role is with my daughter or this family anymore. He starts realizing, hey, there's a lot of stuff of some personal work I need to be doing, and I think I need to go to counseling. But he was really nervous about doing that. And so the house dad here on staff kind of could sense that was an issue. And he said, hey, if you're willing to go and want to go do some of your own work, I would be honored to go with you to counseling. And so outside the scope, beyond the scope of our program, our house dad goes with this man to counseling to help him start to put back the pieces of his own life, his story. And so this girl who comes in this place of real struggle, didn't have any context really or didn't have a personal faith of her own, ends up becoming like the spiritual leader of the girls in that home. And we're actually filming a little documentary style video to capture it, because the whole family ended up coming back together to where the adoptive dad, they decided together, him and his ex-wife and her husband decided to be best for, as this girl transitioned out of our residential program, to start back living for the first few months with her dad, to then eventually come back in with all of her other siblings. I feel like it'd be too much to kind of come right back in with all the siblings and all the commotion that could be, and to symbolize that, hey, he's still part of your life and he's still a meaningful relationship that we value. And so we get to celebrate them just a few weeks ago, of just celebrating the ways in which that they really, I mean, we talk about it as defying gravity, to go against the forces that pull us apart. That we everyone in that scenario, you could say, like, they have a legitimate reason to be upset. They have a legitimate reason to feel hurt and to not want to repair. And they all took steps to work through that and allow us to get to a place of unbelievable healing. And so she'll be in high school next year, and she's already joined the color guard and super excited to get involved in her high school community, and proud to be an Eagle Ranch graduate, which, most when they first get here are like, this is the last place I want to be. I don't want to be sent here by my family. And so that was a really special one just recently that really stood out to us.
When a child joins the Eagle Ranch, how long are they projected to be there, or is that on an individual basis? How does that work?
No, it's a good question. I mean, for the residential program, it is between 18 to 24 months. We found in the data that we track in terms of their distress levels and ability to see that transformation, that's really the sweet spot. Usually the first year, you see a lot of positive behavior change in the child, but it's that second year is where you really get to the family change. Because to be, totally honest, a lot of the families will pay lip service to us of like, yeah, it's the whole family thing. Yeah. But in their minds, they're like, but it's the child. They're like, if they would just act right, we'd be fine. And it takes that first year of when the child, they see the child's behavior has changed at the ranch. And then when they come home for visits and the behavior is unchanged, they're like, what is going on? The program's not working. And we're like, and slowly but lovingly, we'll kind of point out, like, you have to grow with your child. Like, you have to change with them. It doesn't mean it's your fault that they're misbehaving, but they're changing. You've got to change with them. And so that second year is where we really see that change. And we typically don't have anyone stay longer than 24 months because we see diminishing returns. Like, at the end of that time, the child needs to be reunified and come back. And so really 2 years is the maximum amount of time that they would stay here.
Well, to piggyback off of that, do you have a situation where they may go after 24 months, but then need to re-enter the program? Is that a possibility? Does that happen?
Can be. We won't redo the residential program, Michael. But another reason for the expanded services was just to that point, was to say, hey, we don't want to offer an illusion that after 2 years your life is perfect. That's not a reality for anyone with trauma or without trauma. And so you're going to struggle. And so we said we really want to make sure families understand that there's not an expectation that even if we put them on the newsletter and we highlight their story, it doesn't mean that we expect them to act perfectly and represent the ranch perfectly in every way. They're still walking, wounded, fallen people. And so what we've created is these other services that they can maintain connection with the ranch in a gradually sort of weaning off sort of way. And so we've had a few of our graduates who will transition to the day school program. So that's where they still attend school on campus, still going through counseling, but they're not living here anymore. And then some of them will just stay with an outpatient counselor as well. So we want to make sure that they know that, hey, we're always here for relationship, but you can do this. Like, you've been equipped and empowered, but we're always going to be a community here that's got your back. And so that's one of the ways that we've even shifted our approach over the last few years to make sure that they understand that and know we're here for them.
And John, I know you're located right outside of Atlanta, there in Flowery Branch. Are you only servicing local families, or is it state of Georgia, or nationwide?
Great question. So we are the range for our residential program is about 60 to 80 miles, and the reason for that is that we require the families to be able to come every other week to pick up their child, to have a weekend at home, and to do counseling. So it is an in-person experience. We want it to be realistic for them to be able to make that drive and make that connection. So we are local in that way. So it's not the entire state of Georgia, but we try to stay within a 60 to 80 mile radius for direct service, folks that we're serving directly.
Right.
Tell me, how do you guys finance this? Because this has got to be quite an expensive chore. And do you have psychologists on staff? It seems like you got to have heavy staff and then a lot of resources in order to make this a complete project. Could you talk about the financing and the professionals on staff?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking that. So just to kind of play out a few numbers for you. So we served about 500 children and family members directly last year through a small portion of that is the residential program, and then you've got our day school program, and then you've got that outpatient counseling kind of ongoing client base. So for that, we have about 75 staff to serve all of those folks, and that's about 50 full-time, about 25 part-time. We've got about 15 licensed clinicians on staff. That includes various, some that are specialized or licensed clinical social workers, some that are marriage and family therapists. We have a psychologist on staff, as you mentioned. But we also try to blend sort of a therapeutic clinical approach with also the life on life kind of discipleship approach, given our faith-based, not just background, but the way that all of our staff believe. And so we've got, folks that are working in our equine program. We do equine therapy. We've got a heavy component of being here on the ranch is our recreational component. So, we say it's kids kind of learn or relearn how to work and play being here at the ranch, kind of recapturing elements of their childhood. And so we've got those staff, and then financially, every family we serve pays something because we want them to have the dignity of contributing to it, but as well as having skin in the game. But every family that is served here, regardless of their socioeconomic status, does receive some of it as charity. And so about 95% of our revenue is sourced from private donors that have come alongside us to say, hey, we want to make sure that the families in our community who need this receive it. And so I'm very proud of the fact that the legacy that I inherited and we've continued is that no family has ever been turned away from the ranch because they couldn't afford to pay. And so when we're able to do that, because God has just raised up an amazing community of support around us. I mean, obviously locally here, but even across the country, of folks who have felt the Lord's call to be able to kind of help us keep doing this work. And so we're able to do that and provide those, as you mentioned. It's expensive to do residential services and have folks live here and be housed here and have counseling around them in a school environment. But for those for whom it's necessary, we want to make sure it's available to them, and so that's a big part of our story.
And John, I can imagine that the demand for the need is great. How do you decide? Is it first come, first served as far as the people reaching out to you, or how do you make that determination as to which families you'll bring in versus those who, have you ever had to turn anyone away because it just didn't fit? You can feel their needs.
Yes. So certainly, I would say, there's still many who call who their long-term need is not a fit for the ranch. So I'll give you an example, like someone who calls and their child has severe addiction challenges. We're not equipped as a rehab facility, so we'll refer them to someone else to be able to work through that. We have some great relationships around the state of folks who do that. So that's like an example of someone who would reach out that would not be a fit for us. But we did, one of the things we've added and we actually launched just this past fall is what we're calling first step counseling. And this was to have something that we could offer to pretty much every single person who called us when they reach out to us. So for those, 750 calls last year, we wanted to make sure that they had a landing spot, that even if we're not the long-term fit for them, that they could immediately, when we guarantee within 72 hours, they could sit down in person with a counselor on our team who can review their situation and help them develop a roadmap of service, even if it's not the ranch. Say, hey, you need to go rehab first, then you need to go do X, Y, and Z. Just helping to orient them into the landscape, because it's a very disorienting time to think about my child's behavior is getting out of control and I don't know what to do and I don't know who to talk to. And so that's how we approach it there. And then we do have wait lists for some of our long-term counselors. We have a few openings in our day school program right now. And then we have a few openings on our girl side of the residential at this moment. But there certainly have been times where we'll have to tell a family, hey, we can't get you in this semester. We've got that on the boys' side right now. We can't get you in this next semester, but likely probably the semester following. In the meantime, can we connect you with one of our outpatient counselors or our first step counselors to kind of just offer service in the meantime and help stabilize the situation? And it's a discernment process, Barbara. It's a discernment of it's a long admissions process to make sure that it's the appropriate fit and that the family is the right fit for really, leaning into the full process of receiving whole family counseling, which is a big deal.
Yes. Thank you.
John, you got 3 kids, right?
I do.
I've always wondered about people who run organizations like you're running, and your children are there with children who are having issues and trouble.
Yes.
Or whatever. How do you guys balance that?
Yes. Yeah. It's a great question.
Parent, how do you balance that with your job kind of thing?
Yeah.
And if that's a sensitive question, you don't have to answer.
No. I appreciate you asking. It's actually, and it's a great question. So it was a big question I had coming into it, Tom, to be totally honest. We were raising our kids in the city and we planned to stay in the city of Atlanta. We were in the Grant Park neighborhood. We loved it. I was working at Chick-fil-A, their corporate office. And so when we felt this call, my wife and I, we were like, this is a big change. And we really want to make sure that God is in this. And we're not making this decision haphazardly. So one of the things I did actually in the interview process is I asked Eddie, the founder, I said, hey, because I knew he had 5 children and they're grown. And so I said, hey, can I talk to at least one of your kids about what it was like to grow up at the ranch? And he very graciously connected me with one of his sons, and we had a great conversation. I just asked him, and he was so honest with me about the challenges, but also the joy. And he said something to me that I didn't forget. He said, John, I just want to tell you, like, growing up on that ranch was actually formed like an idyllic childhood for me, because not only did you have this beautiful environment with all these, 500 acres to be a kid, and 75% of those acres are woods. And so just being able to do things as a kid that are harder, just nowadays with the way parents are, but also the way society is. And so you get to enjoy that. But he said, we also got to be on mission with our parents. Like, we got to realize from the get-go, like, life's not about me and it's about service. And, but they said that we always knew that our dad, like, that we came first. And even the way that the campus is structured, the staff housing area, so where my home is on campus, is really tucked away from the homes where the kids are. And so when I go home, even though it's only a 2-minute commute, I really feel home, Tom, and it really is a blessing to be in that environment, but also know, like, this is my family. It's also why we have almost 75 staff. Is we're structured as an organization, a professional organization, not as a oh, I'm on call and everything's always on fire and I'm having to constantly be, running into the homes to save situations from, it's like, no, like this is a well-oiled machine organization. And we want to make sure we've got the staff to be able to prevent burnout and allow folks to really make this a career in calling. And the last thing I'll say is that it's my greatest joy, and it might happen on this call, who knows, but it's my greatest joy, especially in the summertime, when I'll be on a Zoom call or I'll be in a meeting and lo and behold, my own 3 young children will come bounding into the room, because this is home for them and they know what dad does and they're part of it. And I think that we've been able to set up like the appropriate boundaries for them to be able to know that I have my own distinct family life, but we also are part of the mission of being part of, kids that have had a pretty tough go of it. So I don't know if that's probably all over the place, Tom, but it's definitely
that's interesting.
something I think a lot about.
I just think it's interesting how you have to balance that.
Yes.
I love that 2-minute commute that you have every day.
Yes.
Oh man,
No traffic.
that is such a
No
blessing.
traffic, right?
Yes.
Michael, did you have something else?
Yes, when Tom asked a question about your kids, it caused me to think about something. With your kids, do you find them trying to counsel other kids along their same age and try to emulate what you're doing as if they're helping them and stuff?
Right. That's funny. Well, my kids are a little bit younger. So they're an 8-year-old son and then a 5-year-old daughter and a 1.5-year-old. So, the kids that in the residential program are kind of middle school age. But it's interesting, your question. I see, especially in our oldest, which is, kind of some typical eldest of seeing him emulate some of the things that he sees in the ranch, mainly with his other siblings. I could picture, I'm trying to think of the most recent example of the, now Macy, now, we've talked about this, and we like validate it, but they'll say like, dudes are like validating the emotion. Like,
Right.
I hear you're upset, but that's not, it's like, he's 8 and he's talking to his 5-year-old sister and so there's definitely some of that, culture and community that is absorbed into our own family life for sure. But I'm not sure it's even as strong as the previous culture I was in with Chick-fil-A. And my wife eventually got sick of me saying in response to, hey, can you take out the trash? Can you do whatever? Oh, it'd be my pleasure. And she's like, okay, enough with my pleasure. Like, I got it. Like, I know I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it to be like, I'm like silly. It's such an ingrained in me as the Chick-fil-A. So that was another part of the culture that our family is still taking with us 3 years removed from working there.
Well,
Okay.
That's been great. Thank you. One other question I have is, have you had anybody that graduated from the program that have come back to work on staff or be a part of it on an ongoing basis?
Oh, yes, many. So I would say some that have come back on to work on staff, but many who have come back to volunteer and stay connected. That's one of even just the last 12 months, I have had at least 6 or 7 grown men who were at the ranch in the 80s or 90s and had kind of lost touch, hadn't been in touch in a while. And they'll kind of come back because they're in town for work or something that brought them to the area. And they'll kind of, you can almost tell immediately because I'll walk in kind of like absorbing it and feeling because I haven't been back in 20, 25 years. And then maybe if stayed loosely connected with Eddie, our founder. But thankfully, beyond Eddie, we have a few staff members who were there at the beginning or very close to the beginning, and we'll reconnect with them. I'll sit down with them, hear their stories. And so it's a beautiful thing to get to share in that and see the impact that it has, on generate, not just on them, but on their kids and the generational change. So it was so compelling to me. And this was happening so frequently that we decided that next March, we're going to have our first ever alumni reunion, like picnic and just like field day, invite their kids and their families out and just have kind of give them an excuse to come back. Cause for some of them, and not all of them, I don't want to pretend. Not all of them left in a good place. There's some that we had to discharge from program or their parents pulled them from program because, it's not working. Who knows, and so some of them wonder like, will it like what will it feel like to come back? And so we want them to know, like, hey, no matter how you left, like, we love you. And no matter what stage, no matter how hard your life may have been since the ranch, like, we're here and we want to be in a relationship. And so we've gotten a really good initial response of folks that have kind of said, yes, let's do that. And even former staff to come back. So I'm hoping that'll become an annual tradition, or at least every few years we'll do an event like that to gather again. But it's been a really beautiful thing to see a few that come on staff, and a few consistent ones that are here almost all the time with their families that are helping out. It's a big deal.
Good.
John, do you have anything else you'd like to share with us before we have to leave? This has been wonderful. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot, and hopefully we can maybe be of help at some point.
Well, thank you. No, nothing else to share. Y'all been asking great questions, and thanks for letting me share, and honored to have the opportunity to get to in this setting, and a pleasure to meet you all. So thank you. And I hope that this will lead to hopefully an in-person visit to the ranch. We'd love to host you. We've got an entire retreat facility here that we offer for hosting guests. And so would love to get to share that with you guys at some point if you have capacity and desire to come out.
Yeah, that would be great.
Great.
Mike,
maybe we can host a show from there and stuff.
That's right. You host a show from here. That's right. Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Tell Eddie we said War Eagle.
I absolutely will. Yes. And he was very excited of making the connection with Tom and this Auburn group here. So honored to be in your midst. I'll be sure to share and pass that along.
Thank you.
Great. All right, man. Well, thank you. Okay. Well, that was just wonderful. Thank you so much, John. Let's see. Where are we here? Okay. Well, my closing comment for today, or as I see it, is really short. Again, the debate is this week, Thursday night. It's the one time we'll get to see the two men who want to run our country. We'll get to see them side by side. Pay attention. Our future depends on it. And that's our show for today. Thank the audience. We appreciate you. Thank our G-List guest, John Shackelford. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thanks again to the TWT team, Barbara, Sean, Emily, Michael, and Joyce. That's it for this June the 25th. Remember, a day without a smile is a day wasted. If you've got an extra one, give it to someone else today. Enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe.